Plastic choking the life out of some of the world's rarest species. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Kenil Gale. Thanks for joining us this week. The world's plastic problem gets worse each day, and some of the rarest species on Earth are now battling the problem. We'll take you to the Galapagos Islands in a bit, but right now here are some of the top news stories BATV brought you this week. Higher electricity bills may be coming for Jamaicans in the next few months. This as the Office of Utilities Regulation, OUR, is now reviewing the Jamaica Public Service's 2018 Annual Rate Review proposal. Sachana Small has more.
The OUR received the JPS submission on May 3, but says it requested a 90-day review period instead of the usual 60-day period because of the extraordinary component in the application. In its extraordinary rate review application, the JPS says it wants to refinance US $179.1 million of existing long-term debt that is based on an interest rate of 11% per annum. It says this refinancing would result in savings of US $5.37 million, that is Jamaican $687 million each year for the remaining 3 years of the bond, or US $116.11 million, that's over 2 billion Jamaican dollars. JPS is also proposing a Z-factor adjustment for accelerated depreciation and separation costs. The company anticipates that this will result from the pending decommissioning of its old base load plants at its Old Harbour and Hunts Bay locations. The proposed accelerated depreciation and separation costs, which should be recovered over a year, is US $11.89 million or Jamaican $242 million. In the meantime, the JPS is proposing a 2% average increase in the non-fuel bill component, which the company says, if accepted by the OUR, would see bills going up by approximately 1%. The OUR says it will have to undertake its own analysis and verification to determine if these adjustments are approved. The utility regulator is expected to hand down its decision by August 2. This is the third annual review that is being sought under the new electricity license 2016. In addition to annual reviews, the license also makes provisions for the conduct of extraordinary rate reviews owing to the exceptional circumstances that have a significant impact on the electricity sector and/or JPS.
Director General of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, Major Clive Davis, says the agency will be putting measures in place to allow Jamaican companies that have establishments in other Caribbean territories to bring in relief workers from these countries in the event of a natural disaster. Here's more. Many Jamaican companies have branches in other countries, so if a natural disaster affects operations locally, these companies may want to pull on their overseas resources. Director General of the Office of Disaster and Emergency Management, ODPEM, Major Clive Davis, agrees that this may be necessary. He notes that bringing in relief workers is crucial for business continuity, but there has to be a process.
How do we get relief into the country? How do we get personnel who are coming to support us into the country? And we now have a very clear understanding between ourselves, PICA, and customs as to exactly how that process would flow. However, let me point out, the central point of contact will continue to be the National Emergency Operations Center that's located at the ODPEM. It means that for any body to come in country to provide support, the permission will have to originate from the national office. Outside of that, they would not be let in.
He says a team has been created by the Office of Disaster and Emergency Management, ODPEM, that will ensure the right specialists enter the country.
And so what we have put in place also is a team that will take a look at some of these types of persons who are coming to ensure that who we want is who comes, or who it is that you have identified to come into your business and operate is the right fit.
Meanwhile, Major Davis says ODPEM will be launching a program to help small to medium-sized businesses prepare for natural disasters.
This year, we're rolling out a new program. This program is being done in collaboration with the UNDP, and what it means is that we are going to be going at the micro, small, medium enterprises, right, to make sure that they are trained, they are sensitized in the business of
business continuity planning and to ensure that they put plans in place.
The government has received an additional 6 cars from O'Brien's International Car Sales and Rental Limited. That brings to 36 the total number of cars received of the original 200 procured. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security Diane McIntosh gave an update at Wednesday's sitting of Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriation Committee. Jamila Maitland tells us more.
Wednesday morning's Public Administration and Appropriation Committee PAAC meeting took an unusual format. The members facilitated an in-camera questioning session with the Ministry of National Security's Permanent Secretary and her team to discuss sensitive matters regarding the controversy surrounding the Ministry's procurement of cars from O'Brien's International Car Sales and Rental Limited. The car dealership was contracted by the Ministry of National Security to provide 200 used cars for the Jamaica Constabulary Force last year. But the contractors failed to provide the vehicles after being paid $213 million, half of the total cost. Permanent Secretary in the National Security Ministry, Diane McIntosh, revealed that to date, the ministry has still not received the value for money.
To date also we're able to, in addition to the performance bond that we spoke about, having received the 42 million, I think in January, we've also received from Mayberry 1.8 million.
Opposition spokesperson on national security Fitz Jackson inquired about the performance bond, which he believes should not be included in the monies paid back to the government.
My understanding is that the performance bond has nothing to do with the amount of monies that have been paid. A performance bond, as I understand it, and correct me, is a penalty for failing to perform, because the contracting party would have incurred inconveniences, lack of service, not to mention the hundreds of people who have been murdered because there's no police car to go and respond to their calls. It is those suffering and inconvenience that a performance bond address. It's not part of the money which has been paid.
Mr. Jackson also questioned the relevance of going to mediation, given the fact that the government had already received the performance bond since the company failed to deliver the vehicles.
Is the mediation option activated before failure to perform or subsequent to failure to perform? Because I am of the thought that that is an option that you would choose as against a legal channel. But given that you have already deemed the contractor to have failed and gone as far as collecting the penalty for that failure, which is the performance bond, isn't the mediation really irrelevant at this point?
Moving on now, it's where Charles Darwin found the basis for his evolution theory. It's also the home of some of the most protected species on the planet. But those species are now in danger as tons of plastic begin washing ashore.
Isolated by hundreds of miles of Pacific Ocean, much of the wildlife on the Galapagos Islands is found nowhere else on Earth. The adaptations of animals to this volcanic wilderness were a vital clue for Charles Darwin as he developed his theory of evolution. To protect the wildlife and its legacy, the Galapagos National Park has kept 97% of the archipelago off limits and strictly controls visitors. These islands and their unique wildlife have been so well protected, they're virtually unchanged from when Charles Darwin first visited them more than 180 years ago, except for one depressingly familiar difference. Many of Galapagos' beaches are now covered in plastic. There's not a place on Earth where plastics aren't washing up on land, and despite its isolation, Galapagos is finding it's no exception. The same currents that feed life here are bringing with them tons of plastic. We watched a Galapagos sea lion, endemic to the islands, as it played with a piece of discarded drinks bottle. Not the kind of adaptation that Charles Darwin would have had in mind. It looks fun for the seal, but there's plenty of evidence of the dangers plastic litter poses to wildlife if it stays in the environment. That's why the Galapagos National Park has now appealed to international experts to see if the islands can be the first place on Earth to turn back the tide. Scientists from the University of Exeter, local researchers and our cameras have been allowed unique access to parts of the island that are never visited by people. They're on the hunt for plastic, large and small.
The larger charismatic species are more at risk from the larger items, and the small animals at the bottom of the food chain that really support this diverse ecosystem here are much more susceptible to these smaller pieces. We're actually really excited here in Galapagos. We think there's a real opportunity to really understand the problem in real detail and do something about it.
The whole time, the scientists and us are supervised by a National Park guard. Even research is strictly controlled to minimise damage to the environment. Tell me, how does this work, sampling?
What we're trying to do with this quadrat is get a better sense of all of the plastic on the beach. We want to know about the really tiny pieces as well, which are too easy to miss when you're just walking.
Many of the beaches they've sampled are almost pristine, but not all of them. This sample looks like pure sand, but conceals the disturbing reality of our throwaway culture.
Oh, there's loads of pieces that have just floated.
I can see that. Even here on a beach where few humans have ever stepped, they found 156 plastic bottle caps in a 25-metre stretch. Is that plastic harmful? The answer lies back in the lab on St Cristobal Island.
This is a rather beautiful example of a copepod. Their feeding mechanism makes them quite vulnerable to ingesting plastics.
They're small, insignificant creatures, aren't they?
They're really important tiny creatures. Copepods are not only the most abundant animal on the planet, they're hugely important in converting the energy from tiny little phytoplankton into nice rich fats that the rest of the food chain are then supported by.
They're not the only unassuming animals on the plastic front line. This is a sea cucumber, not a looker, but a bellwether of a healthy ecosystem.
So they're just sucking in sand, pooping it back out. You know, we're looking for microplastics in the sand, so if it's in here, then we know it's also in the environment. So they're useful sort of time capsules of plastic.
This week, the team are taking these samples back to the UK, where specialist equipment will tell them how much plastic they contain. But the other problem they need to solve is where Galapagos' plastic is coming from.
Peru, Asia again. That is another Asian bottle, some sneakers.
This tideline detective work is revealing bottles are coming from mainland South America, as well as Asian fishing vessels, if not Asia itself, across the Pacific. Staunching the flow of plastic is too much for one country, but Galapagos says it aims to become a model the rest of the world can follow. Community groups like this one have already persuaded the government to start phasing out single-use plastics on the archipelago.
The reason the trash is there is because we have this paradigm that says we can throw things away. That's something that really around the world we should be concerned about, and that we are creative enough as people to find solutions.
The young people in this group say they don't want to inherit the plastic legacy of their parents. And with a population of just 30,000 here, it might be an environmental message that actually sticks. But the man who initiated the call for international research here knows Galapagos can't go it alone.
That blue that you see in the back is polluted, and it's polluted all over the world. And Galapagos is not the exception, you know. So you can, that's the key thing. You need to solve this globally. Otherwise, it's no hope.
These islands are seen as one of the best examples of how humans and wildlife can coexist. Now the world's plastic problem is fast becoming theirs. Galapagos hopes it can inspire the rest of us to do something about it.
Company news comes up next, then later, overcoming the odds to chase your dreams. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Here's this week's company news.
Lasco Distributors Limited has recorded its highest performing net profit to date and the highest in the history of the junior market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange. This as the company amassed a net profit of a little over $1 billion for the financial year, which ended March 31, 2018. This performance, Lasco Distributors says, reflects a 65% increase over the results of the previous year. The company says the increase was due to the successful execution of their strategy, management of margins, growth in key business categories, cost efficiencies, and proceeds from the ongoing Pfizer case. Digicel has cut sponsorship ties with West Indies Cricket. The telecoms giant says it has reached an agreement to end its sponsorship relationship with Cricket West Indies 1 year early, following a successful 13-year partnership. In a release to the media, the Digicel Group thanked Cricket West Indies for what it called 13 years of amazing partnership and for the opportunity. Digicel also said it wished Cricket West Indies all the best for the future. With global lottery sales on the decline and online gaming on the rise, Supreme Ventures Limited says it's embarking on a digital strategy to boost sales online during 2018. SVL President and CEO Ann Don Young Sang says Global Trends project up to a 6% decline in lottery sales by 2020. However, she says the acquisition of Caymanos Track Limited in 2017 is expected to cushion the losses the company will experience. That is why she says the company will be focusing on operational excellence through innovations and technology in order to keep up to date with betting and gaming trends.
Let's now take a look at the closing numbers from the major stock markets around the world. When we come back, more of the top news stories BATV brought you this week, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. More news now. Opposition spokesman on energy Philip Paulwell is raising concerns about the progress of the upgrade works on Petrojam. He had several questions for the energy minister in Parliament on Tuesday. Javon Keys reports.
I see the closure of Petrojam staring us starkly in the face if something isn't done and done now.
Opposition spokesman on energy Philip Paulwell is expressing these concerns due to the delay in the upgrade work at the National Oil Refinery. Phase 1 of the work includes the installation of a vacuum distillation unit, VDU, which is pivotal to helping Jamaica meet the International Maritime Organization IMO standards. Responding to the concern, Energy Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley admitted that the process has been difficult due to delays which may threaten the 2020 deadline. However, he said the government has put the funds in place to get it done.
I'll admit that the delays over the delays have been costing us, quite a bit of time and money, and we run the risk of not being able to meet the deadline as stipulated by that has been stipulated by the IMO. But we are working feverishly. The money is in place, I must add. The government made an allocation for this year for us to proceed with the VDU project. $100 million US dollars was made available for us to proceed with the VDU project.
Mr. Paulwell also expressed concerns about the fact that in a few years, Petrojam will lose some of its buyers of heavy fuel oil and diesel as entities such as JPS and Jamalco switch to more renewable forms of energy such as liquefied natural gas LNG. Minister Wheatley said he understands the concern, but the upgrade will see the refinery producing other products for sale.
The refinery upgrade project is a critical bit of work that needs to be concluded to ensure that we not only secure or safeguard our energy security, but also to be able to maintain the viability of the institution by being able to produce a wide range of products, not only for local consumption, but also for export within the region, such as asphalt.
Mr. Powell is also concerned about the economic impact of a failed project. He said if the project falls through, the almost $20 million in savings being realized now, as well as the greater figure projected, will not be gained.
Today, the economy saves about $150 million due to the operations of Petrojam. When, if the upgrade and expansion takes place, it will be saving up to $400 million for the economy. But I believe, Mr. Speaker, that the government is not moving with diligence to ensure that Petrojam is preserved to continue to contribute to the economy.
Co-chair of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, Keith Duncan, is welcoming the idea of a fiscal council proposed by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark. Mr. Duncan says that the council will help to analyze the efficiency and effectiveness of public expenditure by the government. He was speaking at EPOC's quarterly press briefing on Thursday. More in this report.
Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says he intends to establish a fiscal council when Jamaica's precautionary standby agreement with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, ends in December 2019. EPOC's co-chair Keith Duncan says he welcomes the move.
Further to the minister's presentation, where he highlighted that a fiscal council going forward should embody the principles of the Economic Program Oversight Committee. These principles include enhancing accountability of the policy-making process, deepening transparency of government finances, strengthening the credibility of Jamaica's fiscal path, and also, importantly, promoting inclusiveness and taking greater societal ownership of Jamaica's economic direction.
He says the committee will foster greater transparency, giving taxpayers ownership of the economy's progress.
We hear it all the time around contracts, we hear it all the time. And Jamaicans, I don't believe, have the confidence that we are getting the value that we could receive for our funds. And I believe to remove that noise and to give people confidence, I believe looking at the efficiency and effectiveness of the public expenditure is important, and it will be an important function to be considered for the Fiscal Council.
He says, like EPOC, the Fiscal Council should be independent, hence reassuring confidence in how taxpayers' money is being spent.
We're hoping that we must bring our voices to the table to say this is what we want for this Fiscal Council, which is an independent, non-partisan outfit to represent for the Jamaican people, so that we can be confident that our taxpayers' money is being handled in a responsible manner.
Minister of Transport and Mining Robert Montague says the government will open up all public taxi routes to competition in an effort to overhaul the current regulations that govern how public passenger and commercial vehicles are licensed. Here's more.
Currently, a technocrat determines how many taxis operate on a route, but the Transport Minister is adamant that this will change after consultation with the relevant stakeholders.
Mr. Speaker, no one can deny that the public passenger vehicle system needs overhauling. That is what we will be doing, but we will consult with our stakeholders before we implement our proposals. What I will be outlining today are a set of proposals to be discussed, adjusted, amended, and agreed to before implementation. So we will be engaging our partners to hear from them before any action is taken.
Minister Montague says this change will also include a proposal to have the Traffic Authority place an inspector at the depots to certify and issue commercial licenses.
Mr. Speaker, it is proposed to complete the discussion with the Island Traffic Authority to have a Transport Authority inspector seated at the depots to certify and issue commercial license. Today, the system to issue a commercial license is cumbersome and time-consuming. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, you are required to buy a private license plate before you can buy a commercial license plate. That does not make any sense. Once the examiner certifies that your vehicle is commercial, you will get your commercial license right there at the depot.
These changes, he says, will make it easier for taxis to be licensed while improving the efficiency of the process.
We want to open all routes in Jamaica and allow all who wish to be licensed to be licensed. Two, once you are awarded a route, you must keep it. And if you wish to change it, you can apply for a change of route with the necessary fees. 3, people should be allowed to design and craft their own routes and then apply for it to be registered.
When we come back, being disabled in the Ivory Coast, one artist shares his challenges and dreams. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Disabled people are oftentimes an inspiration to the world, and this Ivorian artist is definitely one such case.
My name is Traore Adama. I am a painter. My painting is based on nature and villages to show everyone that it is nature that feeds me. With these beautiful colors, the sky, it all gives me strength to live. I paint small and large paintings, and people come to pay. Nobody, not even the government, thinks of us about means of transport. We must fight like everyone else. There are no toilets for the disabled in this country, but my friends and brothers help to clean the toilet for me before going there. It is very hard for me. When the toilet is not clean, I get rashes. It hurts me a lot. In Africa, many people denigrate the disabled. For me, being disabled is in the head. My dream is to create a center for the disabled to train. I would like people to help me realize my biggest dream.
By the year 2050, the number of disabled people in the world is expected to reach 940 million. So let's all do our part to lend a helping hand. And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.